Well, the capacity to know oneself is inherent, but it can only be achieved once you have made that discernment and stop trying to get your information about who you are from the wrong sources. And recognize that the only source of accurate information about who you are or how you are and what your potential is can only come from the source of your being itself. And that's when your education begins. And the education, as Plato himself said, must be a recollection, a remembrance of that which has been forgotten, but which you already know, because the real self knows everything. It doesn't need to learn anything from reading books. But the access to that knowledge must be opened. And that's where the educational process and teachers and guides who can help eliminate the blocks to the access to that information are useful. But you don't need any teacher to help you with the information itself that comes from the source, because you are the source. It's just that you have identified with the not source, and that misidentification or trance state must be awakened from in order for the flow of knowledge, the noetic sphere of reality, to be available. And again, as Shankara said, the function of the school or the guru or the guide or the psychotherapist, if you want to put it in a modern framework, is to awaken the capacity to love and to receive love and to love yourself, and to awaken the dormant elements of one's willpower that have been shut off because of a lack of will to grow up, because you don't see a world of adults that you want to grow into. Most children today reject the world of adults before they're at age 5. And they say, I don't ever want to grow up. And that's why Peter Pan is so famous today. And the Peter Pan syndrome, that has actually been named as such, or the puer aeternus, as Jung called it, is one of the major complexes of the society. Who wants to grow up and be a boring slave of a system that is itself lacking in any integrity or wisdom? Just to live for making money is not enough to nourish the soul. And so once that has been cut off, however, the capacity for discernment of real wisdom is also cut off. And the capacity for the willpower to grow and for the feeling of the power of love that will nourish the health of the organism itself, which requires love in order to want to live, must be again made available. Just as the plants need sunshine, the human organism needs loveshine. And if it doesn't get enough loveshine, it's going to be stunted in its spiritual development. So the school that can offer love and wisdom and the development of self-discipline and willpower will enable the realization of one's internal potential and the rediscovery of the inner sources of inspiration to fully develop and flower in synchrony and synergy with a community of other such beings who are growing toward the ultimate love shine, which is what we can refer to as God. And to develop that God consciousness in harmony and in a way in which that all problems of the physical dimension of reality can be easily solved. Because the creative power of God is truly almighty and all-powerfully able to resolve problems, but only if that force is released fully into the environment and the sphere of human culture. This culture has lost its access, has cut off its own roots, and therefore it is dying. And it cannot be saved. Every civilization has a lifespan. It has a birth, a flowering, a decline, and a death. But the death of every culture also heralds the birth of a new culture. And The new culture can either be at a lower level of consciousness or at a higher one. But if we do not give birth to cultures at a higher level of consciousness than the one that is now dying, we will not be able to solve the problems that this culture is leaving in its wake as it dies, and the trouble it is causing in its moment of decomposition, which does include a heightened radioactivity in the environment, which is a very difficult problem to solve, and the pollution of the society and the massive extinction and die-off of life forms, etc. So the problems are huge and not solvable by the current level of consciousness that we are functioning at. Thus the imperative of the development of schools of wisdom and of the self-discipline for reaching those higher states of consciousness from which we can access the solutions to our own self-caused problems.